Jake Morgan's hands trembled as he signed the digital contract. Not from fear, but from the neural damage eating through his nervous system like rust through old metal. The Venlari broker across from him clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement or pity. Jake didn't care which. Station Althara 7, the alien said in broken galactic standard. Very old. Very far. Nobody want. You want? Jake nodded. The price was laughably low, barely enough credits to buy a decent meal on most civilized worlds. He had exactly that much left after spending everything on medical treatments that didn't work. The Terran Medical Corps had been clear, 6 months, maybe 8 if he was lucky. Neural degradation from decades working on FTL engines without proper shielding. 30 years of keeping humanity's ships running, and this was his reward. The broker transferred the station codes to Jake's datapad. No inspection, no warranty, no questions about why a dying human wanted to buy a derelict space station in the middle of nowhere. That's what Jake liked about the outer fringe. Nobody cared about your story. He took his battered shuttle and flew for 3 weeks, jumping through systems most people had forgotten existed. The autopilot did most of the work while Jake lay in the back, fighting off tremors and blackouts. His cybernetic left arm kept glitching, fingers twitching randomly. Another gift from years of budget repairs and second-hand parts. When he finally arrived, Station Althara 7 looked even worse than the grainy photos. The thing was massive, easily the size of a small city, but dark and dead. It hung in orbit around a star that had burned out millennia ago, just a cold white dwarf casting pale light on scarred metal. The station's hull was covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. His shuttle's translator couldn't make sense of the symbols. Docking was a nightmare. Half the ports were sealed or damaged. Jake finally found one that accepted his shuttle's coupling clamps. The airlock groaned when he cycled it, but it held. His suit scanner showed breathable atmosphere on the other side, but only barely. 15% oxygen, freezing temperature, pressure all wrong. He spent the first week just trying to survive. The station was a maze of corridors that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking. Probably just his damaged brain playing tricks. He found a section near the main reactor where the environmental system still functioned at minimal capacity. Got the temperature up to barely tolerable. Managed to boost oxygen to 20%. The work helped. Gave him something to focus on besides the pain. His hands shook constantly now, and sometimes he'd lose feeling in his legs for hours. Didn't matter. He had his tools, his experience, and enough spite to keep moving. The station's technology was bizarre. Nothing like modern Galactic Council standard. The power conduits used principles Jake had never seen, and he'd worked on ships from 24 species. Everything was too advanced and too old at the same time. The reactor core was completely cold, but when he finally got auxiliary power running, systems began waking up that shouldn't have been possible. Lights flickered on in sections he hadn't touched. The station's AI tried to boot up, speaking in a language that made his translator scream error messages. Through the broken audio, Jake caught fragments. Something about warning. Something about danger. Something about keeping away. He ignored it. What was the worst that could happen? He was already dying. 3 weeks into his stay, Jake found the lower levels. The station went down way further than the schematics showed. He took a maintenance lift that groaned under his weight, descending for nearly 10 minutes. The architecture changed the deeper he went. The walls became smoother, organic almost. Those geometric patterns were everywhere, glowing faintly with their own light. At the bottom, he found a chamber that made his breath catch. It was huge, cathedral-like, with a ceiling that vanished into darkness. And in the center, sitting on a raised platform surrounded by those warning symbols, was a stasis pod. Jake approached slowly. His suit scanners went crazy, detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist. The pod was active, humming with power, its surface covered in frost. Through the frosted glass, he could see something inside. Someone. She looked young, maybe late teens or early 20s, but Jake knew better than to trust appearances with alien species. Her skin had a strange shimmer to it, catching the light in ways that seemed impossible. She had what looked like scales running down her arms and neck, iridescent like oil on water. And folded against her back, barely visible through the frost, were wings. Jake had seen a lot of strange things in 30 years working the fringe. But he'd never seen anything like this. His datapad finally managed to translate some of the warning glyphs. Dragon. Apex species. Extinct. Do not disturb. Dragons were myths. Stories the old species told about the time before the Galactic Council. Supposedly they were so advanced, so powerful, that the younger races banded together and wiped them out. or they ascended to another dimension, or they never existed at all. Every species had different stories. But here was one, frozen in a stasis pod, on a station Jake now owned. His hand hovered over the pod's control panel. Every survival instinct screamed at him to walk away. This was way above his pay grade. He should contact somebody, report this, let the experts handle it. But Jake was dying. He had 6 months, maybe less. And suddenly dying alone on a forgotten station seemed worse than whatever might happen if he opened this pod. Besides, maybe she was dying too. Maybe she'd been asleep so long she didn't know her people were gone. Didn't seem right to leave her like that. Jake pressed the release sequence. The pod hissed. Frost cracked and fell away. Inside, golden eyes snapped open. Then everything went white with fire. Jake threw himself backward as flames erupted from the pod. His suit's shields flared, barely absorbing the heat. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his bad leg. The fire wasn't normal fire. It was bright gold, almost liquid, and it moved with purpose like it was alive. Through the flames, he saw her climb out of the pod. She was taller than he expected, easily 6 feet, with those iridescent scales covering her arms, neck, and parts of her face. Her wings unfolded, stretching wide, each one the size of a grown man. They weren't feathered or leathery. They looked like stained glass, translucent and glowing from within. She opened her mouth and sound came out that made Jake's teeth ache. Not quite words, more like music mixed with grinding metal. Her golden eyes locked onto him, and he saw pure confusion there. Then fear. Then rage. She raised one hand and fire gathered in her palm. Jake managed to lift his arms. Wait, wait, wait. I'm not hostile. Friendly. Friend. She paused. Tilted her head. Spoke again in that incomprehensible language. Her voice was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Jake's datapad was screaming alerts. He grabbed it with shaking hands, holding it up like a shield. Translator. Use the translator. I can't understand you. The station's AI suddenly kicked in, that broken voice filling the chamber. It spoke in her language, or tried to. She responded, sharp and demanding. The AI struggled, feeding fragments through Jake's datapad. Where, people, how long, why wake? Jake slowly got to his feet, keeping his hands visible. Your people are gone. You've been asleep for thousands of years. Maybe 10,000. I don't know exactly. I just found you. I own this station now. I opened the pod because... He trailed off. Why had he opened it? Because nobody should die alone. The translation came through garbled, but she seemed to understand enough. The fire in her hand died. She looked around the chamber, at the pod, at the ancient technology. When she looked back at Jake, those golden eyes were filled with something that transcended species. Loss. She spoke again, quieter this time. The translator managed better. All dead? All gone? Jake nodded. I'm sorry. The galaxy doesn't even remember your people clearly. Just stories. Myths. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed. Jake moved without thinking, catching her before she hit the ground. She was surprisingly light despite her size, and warm. Not fever warm, but like standing near a fireplace. Hey, stay with me. When's the last time you ate? Drank anything? She looked at him like he was speaking nonsense. Which, fair enough, he probably was. You don't sleep for 10,000 years and wake up hungry for lunch. But Jake had spent 3 decades keeping ships and stations running. When systems failed, you went back to basics. He half-carried her to the lift, back up to his makeshift living quarters. She didn't resist, still too shocked to do much besides stare at everything. The station looked different through her eyes, he imagined. All this ancient technology, now old and broken. His quarters were a mess. Spare parts everywhere, food containers scattered around, medical supplies taking up half the space. He cleared off the only chair and helped her sit. She folded her wings carefully, tucking them against her back. Jake grabbed a ration pack and a water bottle. It's not great, but it's what I've got. She took them carefully, examining the packaging like it was alien technology. Which, to her, it probably was. She managed to open the water bottle and drank carefully. Then she tried the ration bar and made a face that was universally recognizable as disgust. Despite everything, Jake laughed. Yeah, they taste like cardboard. But they keep you alive. Over the next few days, they developed a rhythm. The translator got better as the AI learned her language, something it called Old Draconic. Her name translated roughly to Ember, or at least that's what Jake started calling her. She seemed okay with it. She was fascinated by everything. The way his datapad worked. How the food synthesizer turned paste into barely edible meals. The concept of humans spreading across the galaxy in just a few thousand years. To her, humans were brand new, barely past throwing rocks at each other. Your species was primitive when I slept, she said one morning, her galactic standard improving rapidly. You hadn't even left your world. Jake shrugged, working on a power conduit. We're stubborn. And we breed fast compared to most species. Plus we're really good at stealing other people's technology and making it work. She watched him work with intense interest. You understand the old systems. How? I'm a mechanic. Been fixing things my whole life. Your people built stuff that actually makes sense, unlike the mess the council uses now. Everything is modular, efficient. It's beautiful engineering. Ember moved closer, her scales shimmering in the light. Show me. So Jake taught her about modern technology while she explained how the ancient systems really worked. She could interface directly with the station using her bioelectric field, something Jake had never seen any species do. Together, they made more progress in a week than Jake had made in a month alone. They got the main reactor online. Real power, not the auxiliary trickle Jake had been surviving on. Lights blazed through sections that had been dark for millennia. Environmental systems kicked in, bringing temperature and pressure to comfortable levels. The station began to feel less like a tomb and more like a place where people could actually live. But Jake was getting worse. The work helped him ignore it, but his tremors were increasing. He'd black out sometimes, losing minutes or hours. Once he woke up on the floor with Ember crouched over him, her face tight with worry. What's wrong with you? She demanded. Jake pushed himself up, wiping blood from his mouth with his sleeve. Nothing. Just tired. Don't lie. I can smell the damage. Your neural system is failing. He should have known she'd figure it out. Yeah. Occupational hazard. Spent too many years working on engines without proper shielding. Cooked my brain slowly over 30 years. Doctors say I've got maybe 6 months left. Ember stood abruptly. That's why you came here. To die alone. Seemed like a good plan at the time. Her response was immediate and volcanic. Fire erupted around her, not threatening but expressing pure emotion. She shouted in her own language, words too fast for the translator to catch. The station's lights flickered. Equipment sparked. Jake had never seen rage quite like it. Not directed at him, but at everything. At the universe for being cruel. At humanity for treating its people like disposable parts. At him for giving up. In her fury, she slammed her hand against a wall panel. The impact sent a surge of bioelectric energy through the station's systems. Ancient machinery activated, sections Jake hadn't even known existed. Lights raced down corridors. Deep below, something massive hummed to life. When the surge faded, Ember stood trembling, staring at a display that had appeared on every screen in the room. The translator worked frantically. Medical facility. Neural reconstruction. Full biological restoration. Jake stared. What is that? Ember's voice was quiet now, intense. This station. It wasn't just a waypoint. It was a medical research facility. My people studied healing, life extension, neural enhancement. She turned to him, golden eyes blazing. The technology still works. We can save you. For the first time since his diagnosis, Jake felt something he thought was dead. Hope. The medical bay was incredible. Once Ember activated it fully, Jake understood why her people had been feared. The equipment looked like art and science had a child. All flowing curves and crystalline structures that pulsed within a light. Displays showed biological readouts in 3 dimensions, rotating models of organs and neural pathways that made modern medical scanners look like children's toys. But there was a problem. A big one. Stellar marrow, Ember said, pointing at a list on the display. Crystallized dark energy. Quantum-locked proteins. Neural substrate solution. She looked at Jake. The supplies are gone. Depleted or decayed over 10,000 years. Jake studied the list on his datapad, running searches through every database he could access. Most of the items didn't even have entries in modern catalogs. The few that did were marked as theoretical or extinct materials. Where do we even get this stuff? Galactic Council markets, Ember said quietly. They control all trade in exotic materials. They have to. Some of these substances are what's left of my people's technology, hoarded and studied. Jake felt his stomach sink. The Council hunts your kind. If we start asking for Apex-era materials, they'll come looking. I know. Ember's wings twitched with agitation. But what choice do we have? You're dying. They spent 2 days arguing about it. Ember wanted to risk everything immediately. Jake wanted to be careful, methodical. Finally, they compromised. Jake would use his old network, people he'd worked with over 30 years in the fringe. Smugglers, fixers, people who moved cargo without asking too many questions. He started with Danny Ortiz, a ship captain he'd known for 15 years. The conversation was carefully casual, just an old mechanic looking for rare parts for a project. Danny said he'd ask around. Then Jake contacted Lisa Chen, who ran a salvage operation near the core worlds. Same story, different approach. Just checking if anyone had access to exotic materials for research purposes. One by one, Jake reached out to 24 contacts. He kept it vague, offered real credits, and didn't push. Most said they'd look into it. A few said outright no, too dangerous. 3 said they could get some items but not others. Meanwhile, Ember explored the station's database. What she found destroyed something inside her. Jake heard her screaming from 3 sections away, found her surrounded by projected images. Historical records. Battle footage. Diplomatic communications. They killed us, she said, her voice hollow. Not in some glorious war. Not fighting monsters. They murdered us because we were better than them. Jake watched the images. Saw dragon cities burning. Saw ships being torn apart. Saw the younger species of the galaxy, including some that now sat on the council, coordinating their attacks. It wasn't defense. It was genocide. The council was founded on our corpses, Ember continued. They built their entire civilization by dividing up our technology, our worlds, our resources. And then they rewrote history to make themselves heroes who defeated tyrants. Jake put a hand on her shoulder. She was shaking, fire flickering along her scales. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They'll kill me if they find me. They have to. I'm proof their entire foundation is a lie. Then we don't let them find you. But 2 weeks later, his datapad screamed an alert. A council patrol ship had just dropped out of FTL near the station. Jake's blood went cold as he read the automated message. Attention Station Althara 7. You are operating technology that requires council inspection. Prepare to be boarded. Jake ran to find Ember. She was in the reactor room, already looking at the same alert on the station's systems. Someone told them, she said. Yeah. Jake felt sick. One of his contacts had sold them out. Had to be. Nobody else knew they were here doing anything unusual. What do we do? Ember asked. Jake looked at her. Really looked at her. This girl who'd woken up to find everything she knew was gone, who'd chosen to help a dying stranger instead of grieving alone, who deserved better than to be hunted by the people who'd murdered her family. We don't hide, he said. We don't run. We make a stand. Jake, they'll kill us both. Maybe. But I'm tired of rolling over. Spent my whole life fixing things for people who barely noticed I existed. Worked myself to death keeping their ships running. And what did I get? A diagnosis and a handshake. He pulled up the communication panel. You know what humanity's really good at? Making noise. If they're going to come for you, the whole galaxy is going to watch. Ember's eyes widened. That's insane. Yeah, probably. But I didn't survive 30 years in the fringe by playing it safe. He started recording. This is Jake Morgan, owner of Station Althara 7. I'm broadcasting on all open frequencies. The Galactic Council is about to commit another war crime, and I want everyone to see it. Ember grabbed his arm. If you do this, there's no going back. They'll never leave you alone. Jake smiled. It felt good to smile again. Good. I'm done being alone. He hit transmit, then opened a second channel, this one aimed at every human ship and station within 5 light-years. This is Jake Morgan. I need help. Any Terran vessels in range, I'm about to make first contact with an apex species, and the Council wants her dead. Could use some witnesses. Ember stared at him. You're actually doing this. We're actually doing this. Jake pulled up the external cameras, showing the patrol ship moving closer. Your people hid you away to survive. Well, you survived. Now let's show these bastards what they really did. Ember stood silent for a long moment. Then fire blazed around her, bright and fierce. If we're doing this, we do it properly. Open a channel to that ship. Jake did. The patrol captain's face appeared, a Venlari with bureaucratic irritation written across its features. Station Althara 7, you will allow immediate boarding and inspection. Ember stepped into view of the camera. Her wings spread wide, scales glowing, fire dancing along her arms. She spoke in perfect galactic standard. This is Ember, last daughter of the Dragon Flight. You murdered my people 10,000 years ago. Come and try to finish the job. The patrol captain's face went through several colors. Its mandibles clicked frantically. Behind it, Jake could see crew members panicking, rushing to stations. Within seconds, the communication channels exploded. News networks. Government frequencies. Private messages. Everyone in range with a receiver had just seen a dragon appear on their screens. The galaxy was watching now. The patrol captain recovered its composure. You need to surrender immediately. For your own safety. Safety? Ember laughed, and it sounded like a roaring furnace. You want to talk to me about safety? Broadcast the files, Jake. Jake released everything they'd found in the database. Battle records. Execution orders. Proof of systematic extermination. Thousands of hours of evidence, flooding every network they could reach. The patrol ship's weapons powered up. But before they could fire, 3 more ships dropped out of FTL. Human cruisers, old but tough, bearing Terran Defense Force markings. A new voice came over the channel, gravelly and amused. Council patrol vessel, this is Captain Rodriguez of the TDF Perseverance. We're here to ensure peaceful first contact procedures are followed. I suggest you don't do anything stupid. Jake recognized that voice. Rodriguez had been one of his contacts, a retired captain who still had pull with active duty crews. The old man had actually come through. The patrol captain's face cycled through more colors. This is a council matter. This is a human station protecting a sentient being from harm, Rodriguez interrupted. That makes it our matter too. Stand down. The standoff hung in the balance. Jake's heart hammered. This could still go very wrong. Then Ember did something unexpected. She smiled at the camera, showing teeth that looked very sharp. Tell your council that I'm not hiding anymore. Tell them the truth is coming. Tell them humanity knows how to pick its friends. The patrol ship's weapons powered down. The captain looked like it wanted to be anywhere else. This will be reported to the full council. You do that, Jake said. We'll be right here. The galactic network exploded within hours. Jake watched the feeds come in from every corner of known space, his datapad scrolling through thousands of posts per second. A living dragon. Proof of genocide. A human protecting an apex species. It was the biggest story in 10,000 years. The reactions were split down the middle. Half the species in the council demanded immediate action. Ember was too dangerous to live. The old laws existed for a reason. Jake was a traitor to galactic stability and needed to be arrested. The other half had questions. Hard questions. If the dragons were really tyrants, why did the historical evidence show coordinated extermination of civilians? Why had the council buried these records? What else were they lying about? Humanity's response was typically human. 3 more warships arrived within 2 days, along with a dozen civilian vessels full of journalists, researchers, and people who just wanted to see a real dragon. The Terran ambassador to the council gave a speech that went viral immediately. For 30 years, Jake Morgan fixed our ships and kept our people safe in the dark between stars. He asked for nothing and received even less. Now he's made the most important discovery in galactic history, and you want to punish him for it? That's not justice. That's fear. The younger species started protesting on their homeworlds. The Kaelsha, who'd only joined the council 200 years ago, released a statement questioning the historical narrative. The Torvan Collective withdrew their security forces from 3 council stations, citing ethical concerns. Even some of the older species began distancing themselves from the hardline position. But Jake barely paid attention to any of it. He was running out of time. The standoff had delayed their supply gathering by 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, Jake's condition deteriorated rapidly. The stress and work had accelerated everything. He couldn't feel his left leg anymore. His vision went double for hours at a time. The tremors were constant now, bad enough that he couldn't hold tools without dropping them. Ember watched him like a hawk, her frustration growing with each day. They had most of the materials now. Captain Rodriguez and his contacts had come through, smuggling in exotic substances through back channels while the council was distracted. But they were still missing key components. The neural substrate solution, Ember said, pacing in the medical bay. Her wings twitched with agitation. And the quantum-locked proteins. We need both or the treatment won't work properly. Jake leaned against a wall, breathing hard. Just walking to the medical bay had exhausted him. How long can we wait? The substrate degrades after synthesis. We'd need to have everything ready before we make it. As for the proteins. She pulled up a display. There's only one known source in Council space. A research facility on Centauri Prime. That's a core world. Maximum security. I know. Ember's golden eyes met his. Which is why I'm going to steal it. Absolutely not. They're looking for any excuse to label you a threat. I don't care. You're dying, Jake. Every day we wait, you get worse. I can see it. Her voice cracked. You saved me. You gave me a reason to wake up instead of just going back to sleep forever. I'm not letting you die because I was too afraid to act. Jake wanted to argue, but another tremor hit him. His legs gave out and he slid down the wall. Ember caught him, her hands surprisingly gentle for someone who could breathe fire. I'm fine, he managed to say. You're not fine. You can barely stand. She helped him to a chair. I've been analyzing the medical data. You have maybe 3 weeks left. 4 if we're incredibly lucky. The number hit Jake like a physical blow. 3 weeks. He'd known it was coming, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real in a way it hadn't been before. The treatment takes 3 days to complete once we start, Ember continued. If something goes wrong, if we have to stop midway, the damage could be irreversible. We need everything ready. We need it now. Then we find another way to get those proteins. There is no other way. That facility is the only source. Ember knelt beside him. I'm fast. I can interface with their systems. I'll be in and out before they know what happened. And if you're caught? Then at least I tried. Before Jake could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Someone was hacking their communication systems. Ember moved to a console, her fingers dancing across the controls as she interfaced with the station's defenses. It's not an attack, she said, confused. Someone's trying to send us a message. Encrypted. Very encrypted. She worked for a moment. It's from inside the council. The message appeared on screen, text only, no identification. I know what you need. I know where it is. And I know how to get it. But we need to talk first. Alone. Jake and Ember exchanged glances. It's a trap, Jake said. Probably. But what if it's not? Ember opened a return channel. Who are you? The response came immediately. Someone who's tired of lies. Someone who lost family to the purge. Someone who wants the truth to matter more than politics. That's not an answer, Ember shot back. A pause. Then, my name is Dr. Rebecca Foster. I work at the Centauri Prime Research Facility. I'm human. And I have access to what you need. Jake felt his heart rate spike. A human, working inside a council facility, offering to help. It seemed too convenient. Why would you risk this? Ember asked. Because I read the files you released. My grandmother was a historical researcher. She spent 40 years trying to prove the Dragon Purge was genocide, not justified defense. The council buried her work, destroyed her career. She died believing no one would ever know the truth. Another pause. You proved she was right. That matters. Ember looked at Jake. He could see the hope and suspicion warring in her expression. Can we trust this? I don't know. But I don't think we have a choice. Ember turned back to the channel. What do you want in exchange? Nothing. Just, when this is over, when Jake is healed, tell the real story. All of it. Don't let them bury the truth again. How do we know you can actually help? The next message included authentication codes, facility schematics, and inventory logs showing exactly where the quantum-locked proteins were stored. Dr. Foster had access to everything they needed. I can have the materials ready for pickup in 48 hours, the message continued. There's a cargo shuttle that makes routine supply runs. I'll hide the containers in a medical waste shipment. Nobody inspects those carefully. Jake read through the data. It was legitimate, as far as he could tell. The codes checked out. The timing worked. But something in his gut warned him this was too easy. There's a catch, he said. There's always a catch. The catch is that I can't send it directly to you. Too much scrutiny on anything going to Station Althara 7. You'll need to pick it up from a neutral location. Coordinates followed. It's an abandoned mining station. 3 jumps from Centauri, 6 from you. Ember studied the location. That's still inside Council-monitored space. They'll track any ship that goes there. I know. That's why it has to be a human ship. You've got diplomatic immunity right now. The Council won't fire on Terran vessels without starting a war they can't win. Jake looked at the 3 warships still holding position near the station. Captain Rodriguez had made it clear they weren't leaving until this was resolved. I could ask Rodriguez for help. No, Ember said immediately. He's done enough. We can't keep putting humans at risk for my sake. Ember. I mean it, Jake. You've already sacrificed too much. He wanted to argue, but another wave of pain hit him. His vision blurred and he tasted blood. When his sight cleared, Ember was staring at him with naked fear in her eyes. 48 hours, she said to Dr. Foster. We'll be there. The channel closed. Ember helped Jake back to his quarters, supporting most of his weight. He hated how weak he'd become, how dependent. This wasn't how he'd imagined his last weeks. I'm going to save you, Ember said quietly as she helped him lie down. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who I have to fight. You're not dying alone on this station. Jake managed a smile. Not much alone anymore, am I? No. You're not. She sat beside him, her wings folding protectively. Rest now. We've got work to do. As Jake drifted off, he heard her speaking softly in her own language. He didn't need a translator to understand. She was making promises. To him, to herself, to the universe. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The next 48 hours moved in a blur. Jake could barely stay conscious for more than a few hours at a time, his body shutting down piece by piece. Ember prepared everything they'd need, working with a desperate efficiency that scared him. She'd taken command of the situation completely, and Jake didn't have the strength to argue anymore. Captain Rodriguez offered to send a ship to the pickup coordinates, but Ember refused. This is my responsibility, she told him over the comm. Jake took a risk for me. Now it's my turn. She'd figured out how to pilot Jake's old shuttle, learning the controls in a few hours through direct interface with the ship's computer. Dragons, apparently, were fast learners when motivated. She loaded the shuttle with everything they'd already gathered, triple-checking each container against the medical bay's requirements. Jake watched from a wheelchair, hating every second of his uselessness. You shouldn't go alone. I'm not. You're coming with me. Ember locked down the last storage container. I'm not leaving you here to die while I'm gone. If something happens, we face it together. I'll slow you down. You'll keep me company. There's a difference. She helped him into the shuttle, settling him into the co-pilot seat with surprising gentleness. Besides, the medical bay says we can't wait anymore. Your neural degradation has accelerated. We start treatment the moment we get back, or we don't start at all. The words hit Jake like a hammer. This was it. Do or die, literally. The shuttle launched with Ember at the controls. The 3 human warships maintained their position around Station Althara 7, but Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Safe travels, you two. We'll keep your home warm. The journey took 18 hours through 3 different jump points. Jake faded in and out, barely aware of the transitions. Each time he woke, Ember was there, monitoring his vital signs on a datapad while flying the shuttle with her other hand. Still alive, he managed to joke during one lucid moment. Barely. She didn't smile. Your heart rate is erratic. Neural activity is dropping. We're cutting this very close, Jake. The abandoned mining station materialized on their sensors as they dropped out of the final jump. It was a skeletal structure, mostly framework with a few pressurized modules still intact. Exactly the kind of place smugglers used for dead drops. A cargo container floated near the main docking port, marked with the codes Dr. Foster had provided. Ember brought the shuttle in carefully, using the mechanical arm to grab the container and pull it into their cargo bay. Got it, she said, already scanning the contents. Everything's here. The proteins are stable, substrate materials are intact. We can synthesize the solution on the way back. Jake felt a wave of relief so intense it made him dizzy. They'd actually done it. Against all odds, they had everything they needed. Then the sensors screamed a warning. 3 ships dropped out of FTL around them. Not Council patrol vessels. These were bigger, meaner. Mercenary ships, heavily armed, with weapons already powered up. This is Commander Hayes of the Orion's Fist, a human voice announced over the comm. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. You're carrying stolen Council property. Jake's blood went cold. Not just mercenaries. Human mercenaries. Someone had hired humans to stop them. Ember's hands moved across the controls. We're leaving. Now. You run, we shoot, Hayes continued. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Hand over the dragon and the materials, and you can go free. It was a setup, Jake said, the pieces clicking together through his damaged brain. Foster wasn't real. Or she was, but they got to her. They knew we'd come for this. Doesn't matter. Ember's eyes blazed gold. Hold on. She pushed the shuttle's engines to maximum, burning away from the mining station. The mercenary ships immediately gave chase, their larger engines quickly closing the distance. Last warning. Hayes shouted. Weapons fire streaked past them. Ember banked hard, the shuttle shields flaring as a blast clipped their port side. Alarm screamed. Jake tried to help, to do something, but his hands wouldn't respond properly. I can't outrun them, Ember said, her voice tight with concentration. The shuttle's too slow, too old. More weapons fire. Direct hit this time. The shields buckled, failing at 30%. Another hit like that and they'd be dead in space. Ember made a sound that was half growl, half roar. Her scales began glowing brighter, fire dancing along her skin. I'm sorry about your shuttle, Jake. What are you? She ripped open her safety harness and moved to the back of the shuttle. Through the internal camera, Jake watched as she opened the airlock, standing in the opening as space howled beyond the force field. Ember, no. She spread her wings wide. Fire erupted around her, impossibly bright, burning without oxygen. Jake realized with shock that it wasn't normal fire. It was something else, something that came from inside her. Pure energy given form. The dragon girl jumped into space. For a moment, Jake thought he'd watched her commit suicide. Then he saw her on the external cameras, flying through the vacuum like it was nothing. Her wings moved, pushing against space itself somehow, and she accelerated toward the nearest mercenary ship faster than the shuttle could ever manage. She hit their hull like a missile made of fire. The ship's shields collapsed instantly. Ember tore through the outer plating with her bare hands, ripping apart metal and composite like paper. Explosions bloomed along the ship's spine as she destroyed weapons, engines, anything that looked important. The other two mercenary ships opened fire on her. She dodged, moving in 3 dimensions with grace that seemed impossible. When she couldn't dodge, she simply flew through the weapon's fire, her scales absorbing energy that should have vaporized her. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. This was what an apex species really meant. This was why the younger races had been so afraid. The second ship tried to run. Ember chased it down, caught its engine nacelle, and twisted. The entire assembly tore free in a shower of sparks and atmosphere. The ship tumbled, crippled but intact. Commander Hayes, to his credit, knew when he was beaten. Cease fire. Stand down. We're done. Ember returned to the shuttle, slipping back through the airlock with barely a scratch on her. Her scales were still glowing, fire flickering in her eyes. She looked at Jake and the fury faded, replaced by concern. Are you okay? Jake started laughing. He couldn't help it. Pain lanced through his chest but he kept laughing anyway. Am I okay? You just took on 3 armed ships in vacuum and you're asking if I'm okay? You're crying. Ember moved to him quickly, touching his face. Her hand came away wet. Happy tears. Scared tears. I don't even know anymore. Jake grabbed her hand. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And the most terrifying. I won't let anyone hurt you. Not council, not mercenaries, not anyone. The comm crackled. Hayes again, his voice shaken. For the record, we weren't going to kill you. This was supposed to be a simple recovery job. Who hired you? Ember demanded. A pause. Council security contractor. They said you'd stolen dangerous materials. They didn't say anything about facing an actual dragon in combat. Another pause. We're leaving. This doesn't pay enough to die for. The mercenary ships jumped away, leaving Jake and Ember alone in the debris field. Let's go home, Jake said quietly. The return journey took another 18 hours. Ember synthesized the neural substrate solution using the materials they'd gathered, following instructions from the medical database. Jake watched her work, amazed at how quickly she'd mastered technology that should have been completely foreign to her. My people were scientists, she explained when he mentioned it. We spent 10,000 years advancing while the younger species were still figuring out fire. This is what we did. We learned, we built, we improved. They were afraid of you because you were better. Yes. But also because we were arrogant. We thought being advanced meant being superior. We forgot that being smart doesn't make you wise. She looked at him. You taught me that. You're dying, with every reason to be bitter and angry, but you still chose kindness. You still chose to help someone who should have been your enemy. You were never my enemy. No. I wasn't. She smiled, and it transformed her face. I was your friend. And you were mine. They reached Station Althara 7 with Jake barely conscious. Captain Rodriguez's ship surrounded them immediately, providing escort the last few kilometers. Ember carried Jake to the medical bay, placing him gently on the treatment platform. This is going to take 3 days, she said, programming the systems. The technology will rebuild your neural pathways, reverse the damage, integrate biosynthetic replacements for what can't be healed naturally. Will it hurt? Yes. But you'll live. She activated the system and the platform began to glow. Sleep now. When you wake up, everything will be different. Jake felt the treatment begin, energy flowing through his body in waves. It did hurt, but not as badly as he'd feared. More like a deep ache, like muscles worked too hard. As consciousness faded, he saw Ember standing guard beside him, wings spread protectively. Behind her, through the viewports, he could see the human warships and beyond them, the vast galaxy they just challenged. 3 days later, Jake opened his eyes. The pain was gone. Completely gone. He sat up easily, no tremors, no weakness. His cybernetic arm responded instantly, perfectly integrated with his nervous system. He could feel his legs, his hands, everything working the way it should. Ember was there immediately. How do you feel? Jake stood up, testing his balance. Perfect. He looked at his hands, flexing fingers that hadn't worked properly in months. I feel incredible. Like I'm 20 years old again. The treatment did more than just heal the damage. It enhanced what was there. Your neural processing is faster now. Your body more efficient. You'll live longer too. Maybe another 100 years, maybe more. Jake looked at her, understanding dawning. You gave me dragon technology. You made me part of what your people were. I gave you a future. The same thing you gave me. She gestured to the viewports. And look what else we have. Outside, more ships had arrived. Not warships this time. Colony vessels. Research ships. Transports carrying scientists, engineers, diplomats. And more were coming every hour. 6 species have officially left the Council, Ember explained. 12 more are threatening to follow. Humans have proposed something called the Free Stellar Assembly. An organization based on cooperation, not control. They want us to be part of it. Want us to help build it. Us? The station just activated more stasis pods. 14 more apex species survivors. Not many, but enough. Dragons, architects, singers, species whose names haven't been spoken in millennia. She looked at him with those golden eyes. We're not going to hide anymore, Jake. We're going to show the galaxy what partnership really means. What happens when species work together instead of tearing each other down. Jake moved to the viewport, watching ships arrive. Human vessels mixing with alien designs, all converging on Station Althara 7. His station. Their station. I came here to die, he said softly. And instead, you started a revolution. Ember stood beside him, her wing brushing his shoulder. The galaxy is going to change. The old lies are dead. The old fears too. We're going to build something better. We? Of course we. You don't think I'm letting my best engineer wander off, do you? She smiled. Besides, someone has to keep you from doing more stupid heroic things. Jake laughed. Real laughter, coming from a body that finally worked properly. Deal. But you have to promise not to jump into space without a ship anymore. That took years off my life. You have years to spare now. They stood together, watching the future arrive. A mechanic who'd been thrown away and a dragon who'd lost everything, now at the center of something unprecedented. The Galactic Council was fracturing. New alliances were forming. The truth was spreading like wildfire through every network, every world. And above a dead star, Station Althara 7 blazed with light and life, a beacon declaring that the galaxy's greatest achievements came not from domination or fear, but from friendship forged in the darkest moments. From humans who refused to let friends face extinction alone. From beings who chose kindness over survival, hope over despair. The old galaxy was dying. something better was being born. And they were going to build it together.